My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, the sap doth run in my veins, boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain, where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end, my sight as deep as the sea. Beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
Good morning. Buenos días y bienvenidos a todos. Welcome to the Sunday morning service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende, physically located in San Miguel, and today Zooming to make community across Mexico, Canada, and the United States. My name is Cathy Cánepa. I'm a member of the Sunday Service Committee and Committee on Ministry and your service leader today. We are especially happy to be led today by our guest minister, the Reverend Tania Yadira Martínez Tadeo of San Diego. Wherever you are, whomever you love, whatever your religious background or lack of one, you are welcome here. Hay un lugar para ti aquí. Remember to visit our website, UUFSMA.org, for full information about this fellowship and how you can take part. After the service, please stay connected for our virtual coffee hour and discussion. You may accept a breakout room, and if there's only a few people, just stay put and you'll be reassigned. Or, and especially if you're new, stay in the main room to visit with Rev Tania and our own Rev Tom Rosiello. Si solamente hablan español, después del servicio, les invitamos a quedarse en el cuarto principal para charlar con nuestros pastores, Tania y Tom. And now we go to Donna Shubrooks for our COVID task force update.
I'm Donna Shubrooks, a nurse on our UU COVID-19 task force. We have good news. Vaccines are expected in San Miguel this week for people age 50 and over. This includes those who may have missed vaccines in the first round here. So if you qualify, we strongly encourage you to please take advantage of this wonderful free opportunity. Registration information will be printed in the chat, or you can email Kate Greenaway with any difficulties you might be having or any fears or questions. You will all be again notified of vaccine details by email. So stay tuned. You know, Mexico is not the United States. The open guidelines happening in the US do not apply here yet. Only 5% of the population of Mexico has been vaccinated. So please be conscious and respectful of others. Vaccines offer you excellent protection, but you could still be a carrier. The more herd immunity is obtained, the quicker the spread and evolution of the variants will be stopped in their tracks. Remember that the New York Yankees team was all vaccinated and there were still 8 confirmed cases of COVID after vaccination. So keep this in mind. Be safe around others. Be aware that multiple businesses and school settings in San Miguel have had infected employees. Be careful and respectful of those around you. And when traveling on any public transportation, full COVID precautions are still mandated in Mexico, the United States, and Canada. This means masks, social distancing, and hand washing. But the really good news is it is safe to gather indoors and outdoors without masks in small groups where everyone is fully vaccinated. Although we know that we are.
Thank you, Donna. Now, we would like to acknowledge that the town of San Miguel is located on the land of the Guamare people of the Chichimeca Confederation, while the surrounding municipality is mostly territory of the Otomi and Nawa people. Migrants from Canada and the US are grateful to make our home in a community resulting from the mixed cultural influences of the indigenous peoples, the Spanish, and later the Criollo. And now we invite you to type into the chat the indigenous peoples whose land you are on. And I will read them. Tania says that she greets us from the land of the Kumiyai, from Oaxaca, that is the land of the Zapotec people. Ontario was territory of the Nipissing First Nation Anishinaabe. From Atlanta, it is the land of the Cherokee, Muskogee, and Creek peoples. Coast Salish specific, disappeared. I'll see if I can get that back. Specifically, the Likwungen people. And north central Massachusetts, Tom is on the land of the Pennacook tribe. Maryland tribes include the Lenape, Nanticoke, Piscataway, Conoy, Powhatan, Accohannock, Shawnee, Susquehannock, Tutelo, and Saponi tribes. And you can keep typing in as we go along. But from all these lands, we gather in gratitude for the opportunity to be together.
Good morning. Glad to join and welcome you this morning. I'm the Reverend Tom Rosiello, the minister of this fellowship, and it's really good to be with you again. It's also a privilege for me to introduce today's guest minister. Known in the United States by her married name, the Reverend Tania Márquez, I'd like to introduce her here this morning with her Mexican name, the Reverend Tania Yadira Martínez Tadeo. As that introduction suggests, Tania lives between two cultures, and as challenging as that must be at times, the way it informs and inspires her ministry is a gift not only to the congregation that she serves now, but to all of us, and to Unitarian Universalism as a whole. Tania was born in Jalisco, Mexico, grew up in Tijuana, and migrated to the United States after high school. At present, she serves as the assistant minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Diego, and she leads its South Bay bilingual multicultural campus. Tania has done and continues to do something that we as a congregation are just beginning to do. Over the past several months, Tania has been generous with her time, sharing with me and with some members of our Sunday service committee ways to make our services, our fellowship, more accessible and culturally inclusive of the Mexican Spanish-speaking community. Tania once told me that her calling is to bring Unitarian Universalism to Spanish-speaking people. And it's a calling that we, the members of this fellowship, have begun to embrace in Mexico as well. Not only with the belief that the values and principles of this faith tradition can have a home here with Mexicans, but also that Unitarian Universalism can be greatly enriched by Mexican culture. We can be blessed by the widening of our circle with the inclusion of the Mexican people who may speak a different language, but share so much else with us. Tania is a gifted preacher in both languages. She's a community builder. She's a counselor providing pastoral care to those in need. And Tania's ministry is more than just one to Spanish-speaking people. Her ministry really knows no boundaries. With love and courage and a powerful belief in what the state stands for and in the true power of beloved community, this spiritually grounded minister reaches out to everyone. Her ministry is to the future of Unitarian Universalism. As you will see, she incorporates her Mexican heritage into her ministry in a way that speaks not only to Mexicans and Latin Americans, but in a way that speaks to all of us. She's a bridge builder, a border crosser, someone who lives in the space in between and moves comfortably between both cultures. So Tania, it's wonderful to have you with us this morning, and thank you for sharing your gifts with us and bringing your ministry to us today. And now I'd like to invite you to share some opening words and light our chalice.
Thank you, Tom. Muchas gracias. It's an honor to be here with you this morning. Es un honor estar aquí con ustedes esta mañana. And so we're going to light our chalice with the words of Sean Neil Barron. Vamos a aprender nuestro cáliz con las palabras de Sean Neil Barron. We gather together as a community of seekers. Nos reunimos esta mañana como una comunidad de buscadores. To honor the interdependence of life. Para honrar la interdependencia de la vida. To respect the dignity of all. Para respetar la dignidad de todos. And to honor the land we walk humbly upon. Y para honrar la tierra sobre la cual humildemente caminamos. We are blessed with space and opportunity to strive to live out our common principles. Somos bendecidos con espacio y la oportunidad de buscar vivir nuestros principios comunes. To bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives. El traer justicia, equidad y compasión a nuestras vidas diarias. To resist all that threatens the earth and her people. A resistir todo aquello que amenaza la tierra y a su gente. And to live out our dream of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. Y el vivir nuestro sueño de una comunidad global de paz, libertad y justicia para todos. Welcome to worship this morning. Bienvenidos a esta celebración. And now please join us in singing together our opening hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning. Ahora los invito a que nos acompañen a cantar nuestro himno de entrada, Por la Tierra Sempiterna.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song.
please join Diego and me in reciting our fellowship's covenant, our promise to each other, first in English and then Spanish. The words will appear on your screen shortly. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
We now enter into a very sacred time in our service. Each week, members and friends of this congregation take time to share significant joys, sorrows, and concerns that they're now experiencing with this, their community. There's a saying in the Talmud that goes like this: when you share a joy, the happiness is doubled. When you share a sorrow, the pain is cut in half. It is in that spirit, and with the affirmation that we are here for each other, especially when things weigh heavily on our minds. We are here to support each other in good times and in bad. As we share each joy, sorrow, or concern this morning, we light a candle. We do so to symbolize that that person or that thought or that prayer is with us this morning. If you have something that you would like to have shared in a future service, please email it to me. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern you would like to share today, but have not emailed it, you may type it into the chat now. We light this first candle as one of joy and continuing support for Trish and Dick Snyder. Trish underwent a second operation on her hip and is recovering well and working very hard in physical therapy. Dick's at her side supporting her, and very soon they'll be returning to San Miguel, where she'll continue with physical therapy. We also light a candle for our president, Dan Neuspiel, who after several setbacks following surgery is now recovering well, with the support and encouragement of his wife, Cathy Cánepa, our service leader this morning. They too will soon be returning to San Miguel, and we also send happy birthday wishes to Dan, who just celebrated his birthday. We light this candle of concern for the continuing attack on the democratic process and the right, particularly of people of color, to vote in the United States. It is important for us as Unitarian Universalists to remember that the use of the democratic process and the principle that everyone's voice and participation is critical is for us a principle of our faith, which we pledge to affirm and support. We light this candle of joy for the ability of those of us who have been vaccinated to begin the process of greater social connection, but also as a reminder to still observe the appropriate safety measures, especially in Mexico, where the number of those vaccinated is much lower. we light our last candle for all the joy, sorrows, and concerns which have been typed into the chat this morning, and for all those held deeply in our hearts, but which remain unspoken this morning. May we now join in a time of prayer, reflection, or meditation, guided by music from the Native American tradition.
Ancient mother, I hear you calling. Ancient mother, I hear your song. Ancient mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient mother, I taste your tears.
Good morning. As we gather today to consider the sacred, let's remember all of the things that we consider sacred in our lives. Sacred means worthy of respect, honorable, devoted to service, awe-inspiring, and transformative. One of the local organizations our fellowship supports has a mission that is sacred, and its mission is in its name: feed the hungry. During the pandemic, Feed the Hungry extended itself from feeding 4,000 local school children each week to feeding them and their families. For each child Feed the Hungry ordinarily served at school, Feed the Hungry now is feeding an average of 4 more, all the folks in those kids' families at home. Although they're doing that with the help of our fellowship, they're operating at a deficit as a result of their unwavering dedication. Feed the Hungry purchases and distributes nutritious food now for 20,000 people in 36 communities each week at a cost of only 10 cents per meal. Consequently, Feed the Hungry's costs have doubled from 50,000 USD per month to 100,000. As schools reopen, Feed the Hungry's food costs will rise again to 150,000 USD a month as they resume their school program and continue emergency relief to those families. Feed the Hungry relies almost entirely on private donations, and they're committed to continue their Herculean efforts for as long as they have funds. So before you have lunch today, please consider how many children and families could benefit from a donation to the UUFSMA for programs like Feed the Hungry. On behalf of the neediest children and families in San Miguel, we thank you for your generosity.
De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. De ti yo recibo, a ti te doy, así compartimos y vivimos hoy. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Tahua tihuahlo ipan huescabilistle. Totlani campa tipanowa. Niman titemilcha ika paquilistle. Timostocha ihuan najacatl.
Tahua tomotzatzani ihuan muxtli. Chiguahla niman xmosebe ipan nahpa xkase noxayo. Tlahli campa tichante.
Tlahli cuac timolinia.
Tiquita tehua tipia chicagulistli ipan nonemilistli. Tlahli nemistli tehua nemilistli.
Tlahli tahua tines chicahuilistli. Tlahli tahua timate.
Atl nemistli. Xtestemilte cateotl. Chicahuilistli ipan nonemilistli. Ipan nonelvayuantineme. Tzopelik ipan noten. Yemanque ipan nomaban. Atl nemistli. Tiquisa ken tlatlauili. Timoscalcha, timochichiuac ueyi.
Tlitl xnes maxti. Linemis tehuan tahua. Tlitl chanta tehuan nahua.
Noche campa tipanopa ticualtlalia. Xnetzmaca tonahli, xnetzmaca tlauili.
Ipan moyoslo tlitl. Xcoche nonacastlan. Ajacatl xmochacuane iuan ueyatepetl. Xquihcuilo tlahtoli ica cualtli tlaxoxovihtoc.
Tahua tiguahlo ipan huehcavilistli. Tiguahlo iuan tonaltzintli tehua mestli.
Niman tles tlahtoli caica guahloba moxtintli.
So here's what I learned about indigenous groups in school. I learned that they belong to the past or to places far, far away from home. In school, I was constantly told how their language was not really a language, but a dialect, and how their art wasn't really art, but a craft, and how their traditions and culture were old and ineffective. Maybe you had a different experience than mine, but I am afraid that my experience is far too common, even for those of us of indigenous ancestry. So let me start by telling you the story of a sacred place on the land of the Kumeyaay, the indigenous people that on the land I live on were divided arbitrarily by the border. The Kumeyaay have a sacred place, Mount Cuchuma. It is located in the town of Tecate at the border between Mexico and the United States. Mount Cuchuma is considered such a sacred place that no one knew about it outside of the Kumeyaay community. The revelation of its location and the history behind it was made public in order to protect it. Anthropologist Dr. Florence Schipek wrote, "Previously unrecorded religious beliefs were revealed in order to have the mountain preserved by nomination to the National Register of Historic Places." And in that same text, he tells us the story of Mount Cuchuma. According to the Kumeyaay, the creator god, spirit, Meihei, put the mountain there as the most sacred place. The mountain was named Cuchuma by God and designated as the central location for acquiring power for good, for healing, and for peace. Now, while other sacred mountains exist in the Kumeyaay territory, such as Mount Signal, the Eagle Mountain, Hakumba Peak, they were used for different types of power. But Cuchuma was the central place, more sacred and more powerful than any other. The Kumeyaay creation beliefs states that when God created the world and humans, the mountain was created as a special place for the home of the spirit of Cuchama. The coming of Cuchama as a man was foretold in the creation legend. When he came as a man, he lived on the south side of the mountain peak. As a man, he was a shaman, a kuseyai, having more power, leading and teaching everyone. When living, he regularly called all the shamans from all the tribes. Kuchama taught them all, lectured them to stop fighting. He told them that they should all live in peace with each other and help one another. He lectured them about all types of proper behavior and instructed them to cooperate and help one another. And then he sent them back to teach their own people. He taught them rituals that in singing and dancing that they were used to train and teach people peaceful behavior, cooperation. But the people did not obey, and all the shamans had to be called to the mountain again and again. In preparing for this message, I began to wonder about sacred places in Mexico, especially in Guanajuato. And in doing so, I came across an article from Mindaji Crescencio Bastida Muñoz and Geraldine Patrick Encina titled Biocultural Sacred Sites in Mexico. In it, they describe how the process of colonization and evangelization in Mexico erased some of the sacred sites that indigenous people had. The eradication of indigenous groups also eradicated the knowledge they had about the sites they held as sacred. Many sacred sites in Mexico are unknown. Some, like Mount Cuchuma was in the beginning, to preserve them from being desecrated by outsiders, and others because the cultures who knew them no longer exist. One interesting point they make is that some of these sacred sites, especially places like caves, were given names like the Devil's Cave, La Cueva del Diablo, to erase their history and to instill fear so people wouldn't visit them. But let me just take a step back and share with you their definition of bioculture. And I quote, "The kind of culture that relates to the natural world by seeing vital energy flowing through all its being is a bioculture. Tangible and intangible aspects of plants, fungi, animals, stones, rocks, water springs, mountains, caves, and landscapes as experienced by originals people in a life cycle context become their biocultural heritage." And to this definition, let me add this also from the article. Thanks to the long resistance of some peoples, in Mexico, we find many types of sacred biocultural sites, from mountains to caves and deserts and others. We can find them on mountaintops and volcanoes, in caves, in water springs, in underground caverns, on pilgrimage routes, sanctuaries, rocks, in ceremonial centers, in the milpa itself, and even within the perimeter of a complete community or city. Outside of indigenous circles, I feel like we have created a similar idea that sometimes overlaps of sacred places when it comes to the places and lands protected as national parks or parques nacionales. The United States has 63 registered national parks. Mexico has 67. And Guanajuato alone has about 23 places that are protected. And I wanted to find out more about sacred sites in or near San Miguel de Allende or in Guanajuato. And I learned a little bit more about the Siete Luminarias, the 7 luminaries in Valle de Santiago, which I visited many years ago. Of all the legends and stories, I was fascinated by the story and the legends that situated the mythical Aztlan, the ancestral home of the inhabitants and indigenous people who lived in the Central Valley of Mexico there. And there, of course, there are sources that claim that Aztlan has already been located in the southwest of the United States or in Nayarit. But some claim that the characteristics of the Siete Luminarias, the 7 luminaries in Guanajuato, still match the description of Aztlan. So that's fed into the legend. And many other legends, like the giants and the positions of the volcanoes and how that's aligned with the Big Dipper constellation, the giant vegetables, etc. But regardless of the legends and stories around them, places like the 7 luminaries that are full of mysticism and mystery invite us to reconsider our relationship to them. They make us wonder, ask questions, and sometimes they leave us with the lingering feeling that we have been in a place where its deep mysticism escapes us, but feeling touched by them nevertheless. And I must confess that I find Guanajuato, the entire state, very mystical as well. Now, think about the natural places that often bring you a sense of renewal and deep connection to the natural world. Think about the places you go to seeking this: the magnificent forests, the Rocky Mountains, the beautiful rock formations and canyons, the waterfalls, rivers, and mysterious deserts and caves we feel so proud of and so drawn to. They have become our sacred places, even when we don't call them that. But we see them as special places that must be preserved, revered, and cared for. And we also honor the idea that national parks should belong to everyone. Have you ever experienced healing in one of those places? Or perhaps just watching the sunset, dipping your feet in the sand, or watching the view from the top of a mountain? Wouldn't you consider any of those places sacred? One of our UU sources is the words and deeds of prophetic women and men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. I believe that our indigenous kin are one of those prophetic voices. For them, our connection with the interdependent web of all existence has always been clear. Indigenous people, and for some of us, our indigenous ancestors, have always had it clear that the land does not belong to us, that we belong to the land. that we are its guardians and keepers. They have shared with us, with all of us, that it is the duty of current generations to preserve the land for future generations. They also know we broke our covenant with the earth in the name of progress and civilization, and have been calling us back into covenant for a long time. Native American poet Carol Lee Sanchez once wrote, "Most Euro-American or Euro-Western peoples tend to separate themselves from nature and to rank humans above animals, plants, and minerals in hierarchical fashion. And so it is not easy for them to perceive or accept a personal relationship with what they describe as the natural world." And this is precisely what our seventh principle reminds us of, that we are part, not above, the interdependent web of life. And in the search for truth and meaning, many people look for spirituality that brings them closer to the experiences they have in nature. And I know that many end up exploring indigenous spirituality. But what I want to propose here to you is to think about all the sacred places that you don't know about, but that definitely exist or existed for members of the indigenous peoples whose land you live on. Think about their connection to the land. Think about the sacredness of the place and how it extends beyond its limits. Think about the sacredness being shared with the land they belong to, but also visualize that energy extending beyond in all directions until it intersects with many others, making all of the land sacred. Yes, the ground you walk, roll, drive, sleep, sit on is an extension, and it is connected to all of the sacred places on earth. Our ground is sacred land. But how can we honor it in a way that feels authentic to us, in a way that doesn't misappropriate the culture and traditions of indigenous nations? Perhaps the answer begins with a simple walk or stroll. My first seminary assignment was to take a walk around my neighborhood, and a neighborhood that by US standards is not considered safe or beautiful. And I had to collect objects found in my walk and to take pictures. That is a practice that I have incorporated into my life now, because what I learned from that practice was to seek beauty, but also to find beauty, especially in the places that others can't see it. To respect the land and communities, we have to know them first. And to know them, you have to interact with them. And the easiest way to interact with them is to move through them, paying attention. In this simple act of interacting with your surroundings, with the intention to see beyond the superficial, with the disposition to be surprised by beauty, you will feel your heart and eyes opening to a mystery you might have missed before. In your paying attention, you will begin to learn the language of things, of plants and soil, of wind and water. At the center of this activity is a Navajo prayer that goes like this. In beauty may I walk, all day long may I walk. Through the returning seasons may I walk. On the trail marked with pollen may I walk. With grasshoppers about my feet may I walk. With dew about my feet may I walk. With beauty may I walk. With beauty before me may I walk. With beauty behind me may I walk. With beauty above me may I walk. With beauty below me may I walk. With beauty all around me may I walk. You see, it is not just a prayer. It is a philosophy of life that invites us to live our lives seeking beauty intentionally. In the words of Native American poet Carol Lee Sanchez, when we seek the beauty and wonder of creation, Creation responds by bringing more beauty and wonder for us to be glad about and thankful for. She also adds that for Native Americans, to live a good life is to walk in beauty. I wonder what this understanding of sacred places and walking in beauty can mean for us. If seeking beauty, la belleza, intentionally and honoring this life-giving land can help us honor the traditions and to understand the ongoing struggles of indigenous groups. If it can help us restore our relationship to the land and to them. Underneath the concrete and asphalt is still our breathing and life-giving earth. The ground, the same ground traveled by our ancestors. The places that received their dreams, songs, and prayers. And the ground that will sustain our children, the children of our children, and all future generations. We move on sacred ground all the time. Let yourself feel the intensity of the breathing pulse of life that comes from everywhere. And at the same time, let us not ignore the voices of our indigenous kin and ancestors that call us back into covenant with the land. And above all, to let us recognize that beauty is indeed everywhere. And that we are moving and breathing on sacred ground always. Now please join us in singing our closing hymn. Acompáñenos a cantar nuestro himno de cierre, Blue Boat Home, Barco Azul.
Low below me, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and the moon, my rudder, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great wind urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
So let us extinguish our chalice with these words. Apaguemos nuestro cáliz con estas palabras. May we kiss the ground with our feet. Que besemos el suelo con nuestros pies. May we be awakened to the beauty that surrounds us. Que despertemos a la belleza que nos rodea. May we be reminded of the sacredness of the land we inhabit. Que recordemos lo sagrado de la tierra que habitamos. May we walk in beauty always. Que siempre caminemos en la belleza. Amén.
Yeah.